Have you ever looked at your life and thought, there has to be more than this? I did. I chased everything they told me would bring happiness, success, attention, approval, but at the end of every accomplishment, I felt an emptiness I couldn't explain. It wasn't until I found Islam that I discovered a peace that anchored me and a purpose that transformed me. This is not just a story. It's a powerful journey of healing, discovery, and complete transformation. And if you're searching, truly searching, this might be the spark that lights your way. Before Islam, I spent years building an identity that wasn't truly mine. I was everything everyone else wanted me to be. I shaped myself according to what would make others clap, not what would make me feel whole. I wore different masks for different places, one version of myself for work, another for friends, another for social media. I was constantly chasing an ideal of perfection that kept slipping through my fingers. The truth is, I didn't really know who I was. I was performing, always performing, and behind the smiles, the polished image, and the confidence I projected was a girl who was deeply unsure of her worth. What I didn't realize then was that when your identity is built on the shifting sands of people's opinions, your confidence crumbles the moment they stop applauding. Every compliment became my fuel, and every criticism a dagger. I had no anchor. I was floating, drifting through life with no true sense of direction, desperately trying to be enough, but for who, and at what cost? When I discovered Islam, something shifted inside me. It wasn't dramatic at first. It was subtle, quiet, like a whisper to the soul. I remember reading verses from the Quran for the first time and feeling like I was being seen, fully, deeply, not the surface-level version of me that the world saw, but the one even I didn't understand yet. For the first time in my life, I felt called to something greater than myself, something that wasn't temporary, something eternal. Through Islam, I learned that I am not what people say I am. I am not my failures. I am not my insecurities. I am not how beautiful I look today or how productive I was yesterday. I am a soul with a purpose, created intentionally by design. That realization hit differently. It quieted the noise. It helped me shed the masks one by one until I finally stood in front of the mirror and saw someone I recognized, someone I respected, knowing that my value was given to me by God, not earned by hustle or appearance, set me free in a way nothing else ever had. I started living from the inside out, no longer scrambling to meet standards I didn't believe in. My worth wasn't up for debate anymore. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone because I was already seen, already valued, already loved by the one who created me. That kind of identity can't be taken away. It can't be broken by rejection or shaken by failure. And when you know who you are in the eyes of the divine, everything changes. You walk differently. You speak differently. You start honoring yourself. You stop shrinking. You stop over-explaining. You begin to live with intention, knowing that you matter even in the silence, even when no one sees you, because he does. There was a time when my days were filled with noise, not just around me, but inside me. My thoughts ran wild, constantly dragging me into worry, comparison, regret. I would wake up tired, not because I lacked sleep, but because my soul was restless. I smiled, I laughed, I showed up, but there was always this quiet ache I couldn't put into words. It felt like I was living in a storm that never passed. From the outside, everything looked fine, even beautiful, but on the inside, I was exhausted from pretending I had it all together. People saw the highlights, but not the heaviness. I didn't know what peace really felt like until Islam entered my life. Not the peace that comes from a spa day or a quick getaway, but the kind that settles into your bones. A calm that doesn't need ideal circumstances to exist. I used to chase peace like it was something I could buy or achieve. I thought maybe if I reached a certain goal or got the validation I craved, I would finally feel it, but it never lasted. It was always temporary. Surface level, until I learned how to go inward, Islam taught me that real peace is not about escaping the chaos of life, it's about carrying stillness within it. Through prayer, I learned how to pause. Not just physically, but spiritually. I began to notice how my heart softened after every salah, how the weight I carried seemed lighter, and it wasn't just the act of praying, it was the way it brought me back to the present. Each time I bowed, I was reminded that I didn't have to hold the world on my shoulders, that it was okay to let go, that there was someone greater than me who was in control, and that changed everything. My mornings began with purpose, not pressure. I started to feel grounded, not because life got easier, but because I learned where to place my trust. Even on the hardest days, when everything felt like too much, I had a place to return to. A sacred space where I didn't have to perform, pretend, or prove. Just show up, just be. And in those quiet moments with God, I found clarity. There were times I cried during sujud, not out of sadness, but out of relief. Because finally, I wasn't bottling everything up. Finally, I wasn't relying on people to fix me or understand me. Finally, I could release what was never mine to carry in the first place, and that release, it's healing in its purest form. I started becoming more patient, less reactive. The inner battles didn't go away overnight, but I stopped fighting them alone. I stopped running from them. I started facing them with faith as my shield. What I once searched for in noise, I found in stillness. What I once tried to fix with the world, I mended in prayer, and the woman I am today, she's still learning, still growing, but she's no longer restless, no longer empty. There was a time in my life when the word discipline felt like a punishment. It sounded rigid, harsh, something that stripped away joy and freedom. I wanted to live on my own terms, to feel liberated, spontaneous, free from rules. And for a while, that's exactly what I did. I followed my impulses. I lived by emotion. I did whatever felt good in the moment, thinking that was what it meant to be truly alive. But slowly, that version of freedom began to drain me. I was always exhausted, always chasing, always feeling like something was missing. The truth is, when you have no structure, you start to crumble from the inside out. It doesn't show immediately, but it shows. When I came into Islam, I was confronted with practices that demanded consistency, praying 5 times a day, fasting in Ramadan, covering my body, watching my words, being mindful of my time, my gaze, my company. At first, it felt overwhelming. I wondered how anyone could live like this and still feel free. But what I didn't understand then was that discipline isn't about restriction. It's about protection. It's about elevation. It's the highest form of self-love because it demands that you rise above your fleeting desires to honor something greater, deeper, lasting. Each prayer became a checkpoint, a moment to pause and remember who I am and what I'm doing here. It wasn't about doing it perfectly. It was about showing up, even when I didn't feel like it, especially then. And slowly, without even realizing it, my life started to change. I began to understand my emotions instead of being ruled by them. I stopped reacting to every trigger and learned to respond with intention. I started valuing my time differently. I started making better choices, not because I was forced to, but because I finally understood my worth. Fasting taught me patience. It taught me how to control my impulses, to put my spiritual needs above my physical cravings. Modesty taught me dignity. It showed me how to command respect without saying a word. It wasn't about hiding. It was about owning my space, protecting my energy, and honoring myself beyond appearance. Waking up early for Fajr was no longer just a task, it became a privilege. A quiet moment before the world woke up, where it was just me and my Lord. Through this discipline, I began to unlearn the lies I had believed for years, that comfort is found in indulgence, that freedom is found in doing whatever I want, that success is measured by how much I can achieve without rest. I realized I didn't need to be in control of everything. I just needed to surrender, and in that surrender, I found strength I didn't know I had. The kind of strength that holds you up when life falls apart. The kind that doesn't fade with time or trends, the kind that roots you so deeply nothing can shake your peace. For the longest time, I measured success by how visible I was, how many people clapped when I entered a room, how many followers I had, how many compliments I received, how much I achieved compared to others. I thought success was being seen, being envied, being admired, and so I hustled hard. I burned out trying to maintain an image. I wore my achievements like armor, hoping they'd protect me from the insecurity I never dared to admit. But no matter how much I accomplished, the emptiness always followed me home, because deep down I was trying to prove something. Trying to prove I was enough, trying to prove I mattered. When I came to Islam, that definition of success was shaken to its core. It was like a mirror held up to my soul. I started to question everything I had been chasing. Was it real? Was it lasting? Was it even worth it? What Islam taught me was that true success has nothing to do with how many people know your name. It's about what your Creator knows about your heart. It's not measured in likes or income or titles. It's measured in sincerity, integrity, faith, and the quiet good you do when no one is watching. It's not about being in the spotlight. It's about being in alignment. For the first time, I realized I didn't need to perform. I didn't need to build a brand out of my existence. I just needed to be faithful, honest, and intentional. That shift changed everything. I started focusing on character instead of clout, on legacy instead of likes. I began asking myself, who am I when the doors are closed? What kind of energy do I bring into a room? Am I kind? Am I truthful? Am I generous? Because those are the things that matter to God. Those are the things that matter in eternity. I stopped running after applause and started running toward purpose. Not a purpose handed to me by society, but one rooted in serving others, in doing meaningful work, in living a life that reflects the values I now hold close. And strangely enough, I felt more successful in my quiet moments than I ever did on my loudest days, because it wasn't about how loud the world could celebrate me. It was about how deeply I could honor my role in this life. And with that new definition of success came a new kind of freedom. I no longer needed to outdo anyone. I no longer felt threatened by someone else's glow, because I understood that success isn't a competition, it's a commitment. A commitment to growth, to goodness, to God. And once you find that, you stop chasing the superficial and start building the substantial. You stop needing to be everything to everyone and focus on being true to the one who created you. That's the kind of success that can never be taken away. There were things I carried that I never spoke about. Memories I tried to bury, mistakes that haunted me at night, words I wished I could take back. I wore my guilt like a second skin. I smiled, I showed up, I laughed at jokes, but inside I was weighed down by shame and self-doubt. There were moments I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back at me. Not because of how I looked, but because of how broken I felt inside. I had wounds I never gave myself permission to feel. I thought if I stayed busy enough, distracted enough, I wouldn't have to face them. But they followed me, in silence, in stillness, in the quiet moments when no one was watching. They showed up. When I came into Islam, I didn't come perfect. I came broken, with baggage, regrets, and a heart that wasn't sure it deserved healing. I remember reading about Allah's mercy for the first time and being almost suspicious of it. How could he forgive what I couldn't even forgive myself for? But something deep within me kept whispering, try, just try. So I did. I started praying again. I started talking to God like he was listening. I started crying in sujud, not because I had the words, but because I didn't. And with every tear, I felt a little lighter, a little freer. A little more human. Islam didn't shame me for my past. It didn't remind me of what I did wrong. It reminded me of what I could still become. It showed me that no matter how far I thought I had fallen, I was never too far for God's mercy to reach. That realization softened something inside me. It gave me permission to forgive, not just the people who hurt me, but also the version of myself that made those choices. The one who didn't know better, the one who was just trying to survive, the one who needed love but didn't know where to look. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't weakness. It's a kind of strength that doesn't scream. It's the quiet decision to stop bleeding from a wound that someone else caused. It's choosing peace over bitterness. It's letting go of the desire for revenge and trusting that justice belongs to God. I began to free myself from old narratives. I stopped replaying the same painful stories. I started telling new ones where I wasn't the victim, but the survivor, the one who rose, the one who chose healing. Faith gave me the space to break down and the strength to rebuild. It wasn't about pretending I was okay. It was about knowing I didn't have to be. I had a place to go, a direction to face, a Lord who listens even when all I can do is cry. And in that space, I began to heal. Not all at once, and not without struggle, but deeply, authentically, and with the kind of grace I had been searching for all along. I used to think strength meant being able to do everything on my own. I was the kind of woman who prided herself on independence, who wore solitude like a badge of honor. I didn't like asking for help. I didn't want to seem weak, so I carried everything silently, my struggles, my worries, my doubts. I would smile and say I was fine, even when I was falling apart on the inside, and the lonelier I felt, the more I convinced myself that this was just how life had to be, that no one would understand anyway, so why bother opening up? But then Islam entered my life, and with it came something I never expected: community, a sense of belonging I didn't even realize I was craving. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It started with small moments. A sister offering a warm smile after prayer, someone checking in just to ask how I was really doing, conversations that didn't revolve around competition or comparison, but around faith, purpose, and growth. It felt unfamiliar at first, almost uncomfortable, because for so long I had built walls instead of bridges. Slowly, those walls began to come down. I started to let people in, and what I found was something deeply beautiful. Sisterhood rooted not in convenience or circumstance, but in shared faith. Women who didn't just care about what I was wearing or achieving, but how I was coping, how I was healing, how I was growing spiritually. It was the first time in my life I felt truly seen without having to impress anyone. I didn't have to have it all together to be embraced. I just had to show up as I was. There were moments when we sat in circles, discussing life, our fears, our dreams, our struggles with worship. We held space for each other, we prayed together, we cried together, we celebrated each other's wins, not because we had to, but because we genuinely wanted to see each other rise. That kind of connection. It's rare, it's sacred, it's healing. Islam doesn't just teach individual growth. It encourages collective strength. It reminds you that you're part of something bigger than yourself, that you're not walking alone. That even when life feels heavy, you have people who will hold you up in dua, people who will remind you to keep going when you feel like giving up. And it's not always the people you've known for years. Sometimes, the most profound connections are made in the quietest corners of the masjid, in a shared glance after prayer, in a voice that whispers, "I understand," when you haven't even spoken. Being part of this ummah shifted how I view relationships. It taught me that love doesn't have to be loud to be powerful, that support doesn't always come in grand gestures. It comes in consistency, in presence, in those who stand by you when the world gets quiet. And it showed me that strength isn't just in standing tall, but in having people around you who won't let you fall. Islam didn't just change my life, it gave me life. It helped me rise from emptiness to fulfillment, from confusion to clarity, from chaos to peace. I didn't become perfect. I became real, grounded, awake. So if you're lost, if you're hurting, if you're searching, just know this: sometimes the journey that looks like an ending is really the beginning you were praying for. You are not too far gone. You are not too broken. You are not alone. Transformation is possible, and your most powerful chapter may begin the moment you dare to turn the page.